Welcome to Vice Grip Garage. This is part 2 of the rough country lift kit installation on bead sealed service truck here. Last episode in part 1, you watched me tear apart the whole front end all the way down to the frame. And it sounds scary, but really it was super easy. We even got the front diff out. We got to do a slight modification of that today. And then we're going to sprinkle all these nice new parts and snip them in the old front end. And by the end of today, we'll have the front end sitting on the tires again. Should go pretty smooth. Let's hope. Technically, all of this needs to be put in today with the exception of the lift blocks, U-bolts, and rear shocks. We got skid plates that'll finish her off, new cross members, center link, torsion bar drop mount, the front diff drop mount, Snutzenhitzel and a Schwarzenegger over there. And the current state of affair, this is how she's sitting right now. Off camera we cleaned up the frame a little bit and went ahead and rattle cam that because that's the right thing to do. And then we're just getting ready to fit that in there, and we got to cut a corner out right here so it sits flush. And the instructions say use a Sawzall, but I got the lightning scissor here, so I'm just gonna just cut that out quick and marked it like the instructions said. So this is what she looks like when she's snipped in, and obviously these provisions are already there. This hole's in the frame already. You just throw a bolt through that, and that's that little notch for clearance, so this will snip back in there. And then you do have to drill this one out, but that's really easy. Problem I ran into is my plate originally looked like this. Someone had clearly hooked a chain on her and drug her around and split her open like that. So I cut mine out and just Zeused in another plate and painted her up, and that'll work just fine. So yeah, I'm just gonna crudely blow a hole through this. I don't know, guy won't see it anyway. So let's get this party started. Yep, yeah. Now we just got a test fitter on. Get up in there, like this. Something like that. And good. Basically the old directions say, don't let it hit. And that's it. So now, I'll go get some front end rejuvenation spray and just and you won't even be able to tell. Help me get up. Well, here's that mocked in, and she's sitting nice, and this is that hole we got to drill now through that plate, and a bolt comes through here, and there's a thick washer that goes behind there, so don't miss that part. Then I'm an honest feller, so I'm just going to show you here. This is actually chipping off just from throwing it down and picking it up a couple times. Not a huge deal, it doesn't affect the old integrity of it, but you know, just so you're aware. I'm just going to hit her with some when I'm done, and you won't even tell. Bring her down a gear. Torquey little guy. This old Hitachi, high tacky. This high tacky's got some torque. There we go. These bottom bolts get torqued down to 65 foot-pounders, and then the top ones are 135. So for me on the bottom, that's about 5 ooga-doogas. I'll take care of them with the old 3/4 here. Yeah, that's at least 65. This one I do have set to 135. By the way, they say this is a 13/16 bolt and nut, and it's not. It's a 13/16 bolt with the 7/8 nut. Not a big deal, but just in case you don't have a 7/8, wanted to let a guy know. Whew! The Honda Saki is burning. Whew. Okay, now the other side. Great. Well, there she goes. That's in. And if you haven't figured it out by now, on these IFS trucks, this is where your actual lift is coming from. All that work is to get from here on the upper control arm to here, and there you go. That's your 6-inch lift right there. And that's why the torsion bars need to come down as well. Basically, we're moving all the suspension down 6 inches, including the front diff. And that's actually next on the list. Now this kit does require you to cut up the front diff, but don't panic. It's actually really easy, and mine's done. And I did this literally in like 15 minutes. Piece of cake. And basically you just take a sawzall and boop down this way. Don't go too deep in, because you're going to hit your case, and don't go too far that way. So use the second rib as your stopping guide, and these pins here, I use those as my guide. And basically the goal is you want it to be flush with this bottom mount, because we got some stuff, hardware, bracketry, and things going on in here, I'm assuming. Now I actually found it easier to snip off this top one first, and that's what it looks like. So I just boop, got rid of that one. Then my sawzall could cut through these two easier, because I didn't have a 17-foot blade to do them all at once. Plus, you know how it is when you cut through multiple layers at once. It really bogs down on a guy. So again, I just snipped off this top one and kind of cut that out, and then I was easily able to get this one out. Then I just took a 80 grit flap disc and just kind of, you know, looks good. Piece of cake. Front diff drop bracketry, 15/16 or 24. These got a torque spec too. Then of course, while I was here, I over there as well. And this is obviously the factory position, and we just brought her down. So the new center link that connects through here also has a steering stabilizer mount on it. So if your vehicle is equipped with one of these guys, we'll take a sawzall and just take that right off. By the who, great time to change the old oil pan gasket if you have to. And mine is, she's weeping up here. I'm not sure what it is, but I should look at it, but I'm going to do the right thing and just ignore it. Next is the old center link here, and that basically just goes straight up. There we go. Well, next is the old front diff, and you want to not do this by yourself. I mean, grab a friend or go get the neighbor, or even the old lady or something. I mean, she's lopsided weight-wise, and it's just, it's dangerous. It's sketchy. You don't want to do it alone. So I'm going to do the right thing and put it in alone. And, you know, just use the legs to jack, and then you reach over here with the bolt and see if I can get it hanging in there. But, yeah, don't do what I do. Don't put it in alone. Okay, let's do this. Okay, first attempt at death. Let's go. Bring her up. Bring her up like this. Then you get your legs in here. Gonna get going like that. And then bring it up some more. Getting there. There we go. This is the tricky part, because you gotta hold, push, and put a nut on. Get in there. Well, I'll be dipped. she actually went in pretty easy. I just leave this side loose so I get some angle on her, and then I got to put the old long bolt through the other side that's got the coming down to the. Okay. The torsion bar drop mounts are next, and there's new hardware for the bracket to the frame, and then you use the old stuff for the cross member and whatnot. And by the way, I actually had to waller out the center bolt on here to make it fit on the frame side. The other ones fit just fine. Oh, there's a broken knuckle. Great. Torque. Next, it's calling to cut the exhaust, and you can see the issue at hand here. Guy's drive shaft just isn't, you know, she ain't hooking up, and that's clearly right in the way. So we're gonna have to notch that so the drive shaft will come down, and then plan some exhaust for the old girl, which is fine because it needs exhaust work anyway. All right, rear cross member, and they supply the bolts here to bolt in to where the lower control arm used to go. This is a pretty stout piece. Prep bar time. That little drive shaft. You gotta move. If I pry against my face, like this, that doesn't do anything. That's what that looks like in. And the weight of the diff actually was sitting on it. So the trick was to pry in here that way, and then the bolt came through. And I just used my dead blow and tippy tapped her home. And the instructions say we're going to leave all this kind of loose, I'm sure, so we could fit everything up, and then we'll come back and, you know, tighten everything up. Time for the front cross member, and there's no right or left on this guy, but clearly you want the RC on the old front end. Bench is getting empty. We got to be getting to the end. Thank goodness. Do I have a plan? Nope. Good. You just want to ruin those threads. Hammer them through. Or use a bunch. Now it's time to get the steering links put on the old girl. And this is what they look like, but I'll come back to that in a second. So basically they hook from the center link back to the front cross member. Here's a better picture up here. So you can see it hits the center link and then goes into that front cross member. And it calls for 6.625 inches, which is just 6 5/8. So what I did is I just marked that out on my bench. So when I set these up, it gives me a pretty good scale, and then I can make sure they're similar. And this is what it looks like according to the directions once they're together. Is a lock washer bolt here, and then there's the spacer on this side. And we're also going to put some Loctite on this per the instructions. Blue would probably work. I'm going to go with red because you got to use fire to get them off. Measuring from the center of the hole and the center link to the center of the hole in the front cross member is not 6.625 inches, meaning the center link bar has to move this way. So what I'm going to do is I've actually bolted them in. I'm going to Loctite and run these in, and feller's going to torque them, and then I'll put the cross member bolt back in, and that way when I snug these down, that's going to push this link forward and get this drag link bar where supposedly we need it. I'm guessing there's a reason they said 6.625. That seems like a very specific number. But yeah, this has got to move this way a titch. We don't have a ton of room though. The guy puts his peeper down this. You might see it move just a hair that way. I don't know. I don't really like that. So it's gonna Should be binding this up technically, but we'll follow the instructions. Time to put the lower control arm in, torsion bar and torsion key. And I lined my key back up just so I could see how it was indexed, and basically flat is flat. Makes sense. Nice and easy. And this is actually going to be easier going in than the factory because it just slides right up this way, and then it's a nice straight shot straight down there to the cross member. And once that's in, then we can tighten up the front diff bolts here and the top over there, and then the cross member bolts, and then we'll snug up this. And also, once I get that up, I'm going to hit her with the whirly-woo, get all the dust and dirt and grime off, and then I'll hit them with some black paint like that, because it doesn't look right against that other nice rough country hardware. That looks a little bit better. It won't be so odd looking coming down the road that way. Well, the guys got to do this a little different than you probably will, because my torsion bars are frozen into the lower control arms. That's weird. So normally you would just mount this up, bring your torsion bar through, and then put your keys in, but I'm going to have to try to do her all in one step. And basically my plan is I got her just hanging off the cross member down there, so the guy's going to roll over there and stick my key in there, and then slide this back on the jack, and then since it's already on the jack, I'll just use this and jack her up and pop the bolts in. Sounds easy anyway. We'll see how she goes. What was I doing again? Oh yeah, this thing. There we go. Yeah. Both the old bump stops go in with the 9/16. And hopefully you're not hitting these things, because if you are, I want to see it. Probably looks pretty cool. Good enough. Time to put the upper control arms on. It's pretty obvious, but when I took these apart, I marked them with the paint marker which side they go on. And then I also popped in some new ball joints in this unit, upper and lower. Truck's got 139,000 miles on her, and these were the original ball joints, so I thought guy might as well just do them while I'm in here, because it's not going to be fun tearing her all down again just to do it down the road. So you don't have to, but I'd take a look at them anyway. There we go. Now we'll put the sway bar back up and sway bar end links, and then we're ready to put the CV axles in. Finally. Time for the power twisters to go back in. These are really simple. Well, we're on to the front shocks, and you get a bag of crush sleeves and washers and whatnot, so make sure you're using the right one. And then now's a good time to take your bottom one and check your width. You want to make sure that this is going to fit in here nicely, and if not, now's the time to spread that out, because once the shock gets in there, it's kind of a pain. And then in this kit, the top one is also kind of a spacer. So this will come across, and then you'll have one of these on each side, like that. And then you use your factory hardware, top and bottom, to bolt them in. And guys got to get her over here, but now that I have leverage, that's easy to push. And then we'll just use a punch to line it up, and then slam the bolt through. Next, the guy's supposed to put the knuckle on here, and there's a couple different ways you can do that, which I'll get to in a minute. Then we snip the brakes on, throw the old tie rod on here, and then we're on the home stretch. But first, let's talk about this brake line. There is a bracket that comes in the kit that works just fine, but I put on new brake lines, if you remember, and the bracketry is different for me. So I'm going to have to make something work here. But I wanted to show you also, don't forget that your caliper sits like this, you got to get that line behind this upper ball joint so it's behind your knuckle. So before you go putting your knuckle on, zip tie this back here. There are some zip ties that come in the kit even that you could use for that. But what I did with this mount here is I cut this piece off, so I just held this with my trusty vice grips, took my death wheel, chopped this off, and then drilled a new hole. And my plan is, once I get this set in here, I'm gonna mount her right here, and then I'll take my persuader and just bend her over a titch so this brake line moves nice and freely and she's not taunt on a guy. Really don't want to lose the old front brake line. As far as the knuckle goes, there are a lot of people that put a jack under here and lift them into place. That works just fine. I'm the guy that kind of just grabs her and heaves her into place. A little bit trickier with these. You got to get the CV shaft started. Then you want to loop your lower ball joint. And then you snip in the top. Sure, this will look really awkward and embarrassing, but just the way she goes. It's kind of like your first dance in grade school. Just keep wiggling around and we'll figure it out. Tie rod out of the way. Bring her up. Okay. Hey, found my upper ball joint nut. That's nice. There we go. All this is buttoned up. Here's my brake line situation. I took this nut off here and I'll swing this up here like that. Get that nut on. And then if I bend this tab forward, this will be a nice angle right down in here. And she's a little tight here. We don't want that rubbing, of course. So I'm going to take my persuader and just gently bend this way about 1/4 inch. You got to be careful back here not to kink this up. And then of course down here, you want to make sure that this isn't hitting your castle nut on your upper ball joint or rubbing on your CV boot. The reason my line was shot is it was actually digging into the castle nut up there, and well, she went down. And then just persuade on it. There we go. And then this one, we're going to take her out just a skosh and a tickle. Little bit. What's a little bit plus a little bit? Medium bit? Medium bit more. Whoa! That's all I want to do there. So we got clearance here, and then right down into here, and then up here. Everything looks good. And well, I think that's it for the old front end up here. Now we just got to put the torsion keys in. That side's done. Working on the passenger side here. And I got my torsion key putter inner tool. Please don't try to make something. I mean, we're talking about more pressure than even Junior Seau can apply. And got this setting in here already. So all I got to do is just crank this up, and I'm going to measure my bolt over here just to make sure they're even. And again, you don't have to, but I actually use the rough country keys because if I ever put springs in the rear, then I've got a little more adjustment up here. I can bring her up another 1 to 2 inches if I need to. Next is the skid plates. And we got one for the front diff, and she comes with her own bag of hardware. That's labeled. And then this one here, she's going to go all the way up front, and that reuses the factory hardware. Okay. Here we go now. Here we go. Here we go now. Because the guy just can't get wrench in there. What is going on up here? There we go. That'll work just fine. This is always the fun part for me. Time to put the tires and wheels back on her and see where she sits. I'm only going to put a couple lugs on her because in the end I got a different set of tires and wheels I'm going to run on her anyway. Get the old jack stand out. here we go. Wow, that's a significant difference. Thinking I'm really gonna like that. So now what we'll do is we'll torque down the upper and lower control arms, and the front end's done. Dang, she looks good. Well, I got the control arm snugged up here, and that's gonna do her for the front end, and man, is it already looking amazing. These tires and wheels gotta go. And I got some 33 by 12.5 by 20 tires and wheels we're gonna put on this thing, and that ought to bring the look all the way around. You're probably thinking, you know, why are you lifting a service truck? That kind of seems counterproductive. Probably hard for a guy to get in and out of the back, but to be honest, the fella is really tall, and it's going to bring my tool lid to the right height, and all my drawers are going to be nice for me. It's going to work out pretty good. But really what I was after is I need some additional ground clearance on this thing, because I do a lot of tree row romping. You know, there's those old tree rows and farms and what have you, and I just dig the old truck in like a tick and go pull junk out. And I'm really tired of running over plows and tires and old car parts and you name it. So this is looking like the right ticket, and some bigger tires and wheels to really dig. That's going to be the last part of that. If you're interested in a kit already, which I hope you are, look down in the description. There should be a link there to roughcountry.com. Go over there and shop around. This is going really slick so far. Zero complaints thus far. Stay tuned for part 3. We're going to put the rear lift in, which is the blocks, do a brake line bracket, then we'll put those tires and wheels on I was telling you about. You're really going to like those. And then of course, we're going to go test on her, shake her down a little bit and see how she holds up and tug everything back down again. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, please do that now. Hit the notification bell over there. That will tell you when stuff's happening. See you next time.